Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Movement Made Better podcast. And today's guest, we have Luiz DeFreitas with us, bodybuilder that I grew up watching back in high school, so back in the mid-'80s, late '80s. So,
Right.
Luiz, go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners, please.
Good afternoon. We're here in California, enjoying the weather and staying healthy, celebrating one more day of, health. I'm happy to be able to contribute something, some of my knowledge, some of my experience, some of my events that I participated in. It's a lifelong experience of sports. I don't know if you know, Dennis, I was a swimmer before bodybuilding. In
Okay.
Brazil, I grew up in Brazil, originally born in Brazil, but I've been in this country for more than 40 years. My whole life has been dedicated for sport. When I was 5 years old, I had asthma, and my parents took me to a doctor and asked what would be the best solution for my asthma. And the doctor said swimming would be a great thing because it has a rhythmic breathing style, and it has a lot of moisture from the water. So that keeps the lungs, in good shape. And I started swimming when I was 5 years old, and I put myself through college swimming.
Oh,
I got to go to the 1972 Olympic Games representing Brazil. I swam 100 meters and 200 meters butterfly and the 400 medley relay, doing the 100 meters butterfly leg for the relay. And that's how my approach to the United States came, because I was there and I received a scholarship to come to the United States and swim for Stanford.
oh,
So
very nice.
I didn't even know what Stanford was, and and what kind of a privilege that would be. And they said, "Where are your parents?" The coach, his name was North Thornton, and he was the coach for Stanford at the time, and he was one of the coaches for the U.S. Olympic team. So he goes, "I want to talk to your parents." Talk to my parents. That was in August. In September, I'm in Palo Alto, and that's how my journey started here in this country. I went through school. I did a physical education and business. Physical education because I wanted to be involved in sports, and then business because my father had a business back home, and I thought I could work for him and make some money to eventually, invest and build gyms. And back in those days in Brazil, gyms and people that worked out with weights, they weren't seen as popular. They were seen more of a low class, like they call people that work on the docks, because that's, they carry all those bags, they carry weight, loading and unloading trucks and containers. So they used to say, oh, let's say the high society in Brazil would look down on you if you had a lot of muscles walking around. So
Oh,
you're like labor work. See how much it changed.
yeah.
So I went against all the ideas of what I should do. So all my friends said, "Are you crazy? What are you gonna do?" I was coming back from the United States, swimming for 14 years. So your head is in water. Those days we didn't have earphones for water. We barely had goggles, no foam around the goggles. It was just direct with that plastic, the hard plastic on your eyes, no cap. If you want to be slick in water and go fast, you shave your body and shave your head too. Now you have a cap. So after all those years, really deprived from, because all my family, they used to go to Europe for vacation with my two sisters, and they used to go to family vacations in general, and I would stay home with the coach swimming, because I had to, summer is the biggest time for the club swimming. So the sacrifices that you make to be what in my days, I always thought, if you're gonna compete and if you're gonna train hard, you might as well try to be the best, right? In Brazil, when I came back from the States after swimming, I didn't want to swim anymore. So we have three things in Brazil. You can be a volleyball player, a soccer player, or a fighter, because they're very, very good in fighting the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I went to do a little bit of the Jiu-Jitsu, I still involved in jiu-jitsu up to today. I got my black belt, but that wasn't my thing. I didn't want to, there was no competition at the time. It's only about 20 years that they institute the Federation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and they start doing competition. Back then, Jiu-Jitsu was kind of an underground fight where if you had connection with the Gracies, they would invite you to their studio and you learn everything about fight from weaponry all the way to street fight. So it was interesting. I made a lot of, it's always good to know how to fight. But my thing was I wanted to really be able to develop something on my own and start to work out, so because I was kind of getting out of shape after swimming for all those years. We had 2 hours in the morning, like from 5 in the morning to 7 before school. And then after school from 5 at night to 7 at night. I used to swim an average of 6 miles a day,
Ooh.
So, pushing and doing, interval training the whole time. So it was very tough, but somehow I belong to a big club in Brazil called Sport Clube Pinheiros. In Brazil, we don't have, like in high school, in college, we don't have the sport, affiliated to the high school and the college. So if you want to do anything personally, you go to a club that promotes the sport that you want to be involved. In this club, it was right across the street from where I used to live in a affluent neighborhood. So they had everything. They had track and field, they had soccer, and 2 stadiums. They had all the volleyball stadiums, they had basketball stadiums, they had indoor pool, outdoor pool, and a great gym for the time. And the people that were in the gym, the majority, they were doing Olympic weightlifting because they always like to, especially those big clubs, they want to affiliate all their sports to the Olympic sports. So that's how I started in bodybuilding. I started doing Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting just to get stronger. I'm 5'10", and now I weigh about 240. When I was competing, I was 5'10" and 260. My off-season weight. In competition weight, it was about 243, 5% body fat.
Damn.
So I went from being a swimmer, same height, because I grew up everything that I had to grow up by the age of 14. And then I was 5'10", 14, 165. And that was my weight for swimming. So I went from 165 to 260, 100 pounds. And when I was a swimmer, my body fat was around 14% body fat. And when I was off season at 260, my body fat was about 9 or 10. About 100 pounds of muscle in the same, structure, It's pretty amazing. And that's one of the things that I capitalize in my idea of teaching. Everything that I teach, I always teach from a little background of my experience, and showing to people how you can transform your body just with hard work and diet. So those 2 things, you can achieve anything that you want, basically. I am a little bit compulsive when it comes to, I'm going to do something 100%. And I don't care the side effects, I'll deal with that later. And we're going to talk about all that. But but this is how the whole thing started. So in this club, I was doing Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting. So I was getting stronger by the day and learning how to cycle volume of weight training versus recovery, dealing with, aches and pains. When you do all the basic exercises, squats, front and back squats, you do cleans, you do presses, snatch, bench press, and deadlifts. Basically, you're covering your whole body, The transition to bodybuilding was just now looking to molding a little bit more, creating more definition on your shoulders and biceps and triceps and maybe calves, because everything else comes together with diet. So that was how I got to bodybuilding. I was about 21 when I started, but I had so much background in exercise in general, because in swimming, we did a lot of calisthenic, we did a lot of isometric exercises, very similar to the exercise that you do with the stick.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of exercises like that, not with the stick, but with the rubber band, towels. And there was always a knowledge that, isometric, you can get just as strong as you can get,
Mm-hmm.
with resistance weight. And I made the transition from the age of 21. When I was 23, I had won, the city championship, and then of São Paulo. I come from São Paulo. São Paulo is the biggest city in Brazil. However, Rio, it's more of a California, Los Angeles kind of a feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
people are more relaxed, laid back, and they have you wear more brief clothes because of the weather. The weather is a lot warmer there. São Paulo is a lot colder, and São Paulo is a little more formal. There's all the businesses are in Brazil, all the multinationals, all the banks. So there's more of that kind of people too. So you don't get to show off as much as you get in Rio, because you step out of your house, you're on the beach. In São Paulo, there's no beach, it's high up. And so the only place that I had, and again, I was going through bodybuilding being a complete rebel,
Mm-hmm.
I was going against the grain completely. And so, but I made my appearances in all the shows, very small shows. Bodybuilding wasn't very popular. But I won the city of São Paulo championship, the state of São Paulo championship. And then I won the Mr. Brazil, which was a pretty big deal. And then they sent me to the Mr. South America, which was in Lima, Peru. And I won the Mr. South America. And that's when I said, okay, maybe I have something going here for me. And so I'm going to make some connections with the United States, because everything that I learned, there wasn't much to learn in Brazil, and I was already at the peak in Brazil. So I had to come back here to the United States. And I could, speak English and read all the muscle and fitness magazines. And I was learning everything through that, how to be ahead of the game. And then I made some connections with people that I knew here. And I got an interview with Joe Weider, who was my sponsor, come to the United States. So I came here, and I had an initial 5-year contract under his wings, and to do all the appearances that I needed to do. When I was asked from him to do all the reports for the magazines, and they got me in a role of, this is a upcoming talent from South America, from Brazil. Brazil was beginning to be a name internationally, from soccer all the way to all the sports that Brazil was actually showing up in international events. And I remember the first article that they did on Muscle and Fitness was the Golden Boy from São Paulo. And there was a spread of about 6 pages. And Joe Weider was right there with me, which was a big deal. He would delegate all his people to his assistants that would do all this part of magazines, interviews, and photo shoots, and then endorsements and all that. But I did everything with him, which was very rare. I grew up on the ladder pretty quickly. I came back to the United States in '84 because I finished school in '78. So I came back in '84, and in '87, I won Mr. Universe.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 years down the line, I did all the shows here in the US Open shows, and I won everything. So finally, I go to the Mr. Universe, and I was representing Brazil because I'm still a Brazilian citizen. Back then, they didn't have dual citizenship. So because of my kids in Brazil and my family, I didn't want to lose my citizenship. So after spending about 3 years, day and night, working at Gold's Gym Venice, 3 times a day, morning with a big cup of coffee, black, get on a treadmill, put a weight vest, and walk the treadmill on the incline for 1 hour, and then go eat, rest a little bit, come back and do your first weight session. So you got one body part in the morning and one cardio, and then again, go eat, go get some sun, rest a little bit, come back, another body part in the afternoon, and then again, go eat, rest, come back, and do your cardio at night, another hour at night.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
you really have to enjoy to be able to do that, because there was no going out for dinner. There was no, because all the food that you eat, you have to prepare yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because it has to be without sugar, without salt, without the fats are very controlled. You got olive oil, you got pure butter and coconut oil, and that's about all you do. But you have to measure all your food, and you have to put in Tupperware. I always make fun of my wife when she's starting to put things in Tupperware. I said, I don't eat anything from Tupperware ever again in my life, because I mean, Tupperware and we used to say bodybuilders, with the can of tuna.
Mm-hmm.
So one day we're gonna get Joe Weider. We're gonna chop him up. We're gonna put inside of a can of tuna, because it was stacks of, especially when you travel. You have to travel with all your food supply, because you don't know where you're gonna go, if you're gonna be able to get the food that you need. There was no food that you could eat in the places that you travel. You always rely on your can of tuna.
Mm.
You eat a can of tuna, you eat some vegetables, you eat some fruit, and you're good. You
Mm-hmm.
got your protein, you got your, basically. And I did that diet for, I retired in bodybuilding in 91. So from 84 to 91, competing professionally, I was on a diet the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
We had maybe twice a year, 15 days break between the competitions and all your professional appearances that you had to make, because that's how you make your money in bodybuilding. Shows, they don't pay that much money, but where you really make your money is going to all the sports expos,
Mm-hmm.
the fairs around the world, and you sell your 8x10
Mm-hmm.
autographed, and t-shirts, sweatshirts, and that's how you make your money. You sit in the booth of someone, some equipment or some product that you're endorsing. You're getting paid there too. And then usually you get invited to do a seminar, or you get invited to do some guest appearances in shows or in gyms, So you have to be in reasonable shape, because it always boils down to having to take your clothes off and pose. And you can't be, out of shape and eating junk, because your body, it was amazing after a competition. So your body is like with I usually I measure 5% body fat during competition, but 3 days later I ate a little bit of, I love cheesecake, so my cheesecake was after after the prize, it was my big cheating and my prize too. So cheesecake, what do you have in cheesecake? You have tons of carbohydrates, sugar, salt, right, and fat. So you have no idea how the body responds, because the body's been so clean, and the water retention that you get in 3 days, you can get 10 pounds of water retention. So you go from 240 to 250, 260 in a matter of week, So you look good in terms of size. I mean, you blow up, your muscles are all really filled up with water. They're not so depleted like in competition, because that's the trick of the diet. It's like how to peak without depleting your muscles so much that they look like a prune, so shriveled up, because you took everything out of it. So the process of going to that place, and then they say carbon up for about a week to 10 days to 2 weeks at the most, to fill up the muscles, without losing that onion skin look. So that's the science of bodybuilding. That's the people that can get that figured out and have the discipline to do what it needs to be done to get there. Those are the winners. Those are the guys that can win shows.
Well, I think what's interesting is I don't think the average person understands the level of commitment the professional bodybuilders have. I mean, it's extremely high. And I tell people all the time, I don't think most people will ever achieve that level of commitment in anything that they do.
Yeah, that's correct. Now let's move forward a little bit from the days of competition. We can talk more about that, but we can talk about my experiences competing, places that I've been and people that I met, all that. But now moving forward, I always had in mind that what I really wanted to do, I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to teach, but I want to teach from personal development. I don't want to teach from just regurgitating what I learned from a book or learned from somebody else telling me what to do. And how can I make someone feel with authority what it is that's necessary to take you as far as you want to go if I have never been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and when I tell someone that this is what you need to do, it's because I know I've been there, I've done it, and it's possible, and you can do it. But this is what's going to take. More or less, some people, they have better composition in general. They have better metabolism, better
Genetics,
genes. You can't beat genes. People with good genes. And I had a lot of my colleagues that they would develop their bodies much faster than I developed, and you could see. And everybody attribute to, oh, what are you doing? What is your cycle? What is your, diet? What is, yes, all that. But we did the same. And in 3 months, he had much better shape than I had. For me, it would take maybe 4, 5, or 6 months to be there. So yes, there's a lot of the genetics factor that goes along with that. But nevertheless, if the effort's not put behind it, it's not going to happen. When I'm teaching, I say that consistency and perseverance and discipline, those are the formula to get there. And now it depends on you how much you want to put into those in terms of intensity to get there faster or later, or take your time. We're going to get there, but that's what it takes. I've been with Troll for 25 years at the yard. That's all I do. I work there from 5 in the morning to 8 at night. I see about 8 people a day. I used to see 10 before. I'm getting older and my energy level is going down. So I'm trying to pay more with quality than quantity. So the prices go up. People that stay with me are the ones that really, they value of what I have to give. And I still have my income. It's great to make money doing what you love. But I'm not a business person. And I do this because I really love to do it. I'm there all these hours and people say, how every time that I come to the gym, you're always here. Do you ever go home? And I just love to do what I do. I love to meet with people, to get to know people and see what their aspirations are and try to contribute as much as possible to help them to achieve their goals. I really care, it's something that, and I don't know where I got that, but that's just me. But I really care, and I'm involved. And most of those people, I have clients there for 25 years, since day one that I start training. And I see them 2 days, 3 days a week. So that's a pretty good commitment, just there to stick with people and they stick with me. And we have a family, I have more than 50 clients today, some once a week, some twice a week, some 3 times a week. But they all important. They all have their value. They all doing something that they want to do at the level that they want to do. My wife, she's a doctor in psychology. She has a PhD in psychology. And we've been married for 27 years. When I met her, we got married the first year. that we met. But when I met her, she was in graduate school. She was going to UCLA, and I was her subject. So everything that she learned in school, she would come to me. Let's talk about that. You know, what is that issue that you have that, and then she would finish her all her yeah, right.
She molded you.
She would finish all her assignments, all her papers, and then she would read the papers to me to ask me what I thought about it. And I basically had an education in psychology, you know, going through school with her all the 3 years that she did, including reading and being part of her. You have
thesis.
to finish
Yeah, the thesis.
the thesis.
Yes.
Well, she had 2 theses, but one was in what she does, substance abuse and you know, addiction, and another one is in theology, which is very interesting subjects of psychology. You know, I became an expert, you know, and she works today basically with drug abuse, alcohol abuse, you know, addiction in general. And that gives me a lot of knowledge how to understand my clients, because we all have tendencies from depression all the way to abuse of substance. And food is one of the things I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't have any vice, thank God, but I do have vice in food. I'm a foodie. So and the moment that I was out of competition and they said, okay, now you're on your own, you know, I go, okay, now I'm gonna eat for all those almost 10 years that I was quiet, you know, eating out of containers of Tupperware. And I always have to watch out because, you know, I go to my physical every 6 months, and the doctor says, hey, listen, you know, now I just turned 65 in December, and I'm part of the Medicare club now. I got my Medicare card. So my doctor says, hey, listen, you know, you're in good shape, you're healthy, cholesterol is good, blood pressure is good, sugar level is good, kidney works, liver works, but you can't forget that every day, you know, it's slowing down. It's not, you know, what you used to, because every day was speeding up, right? Before. Now every day is slowing down. It's up to you to slow down the curve, you know, to make sure that staying on top of your diet and on top of your exercise and your sleep, and you maintain your body healthy. And I think that's what I try to cultivate in my clientele, because I am probably the oldest person in the gym. I try to say that we don't see that slowing down factor. We don't see that when you're on your peak, you know, and I say a man can peak all the way up to 40 easily. You see Tom Brady and all these athletes, you know, getting to be in top shape at 40. Tom Brady is 41, 42 now. So yes, if you maintain yourself injury-free and with all these precautions, you know, and proper nutrition and supplementation and all the stuff, yeah, you can get there. But inevitably, if you don't think about longevity and you think the way I thought, you invincible up until you're 40 years old, you're going to pay some heavy prices, you know, for your health. In my case, it's my joints. You know, I had 2 knee replaced, I had 1 hip replaced, and I have to have 2 shoulders replaced. But this is, at least we have solutions, you know, we can do replacement. But when it comes to your kidney, your liver, I mean, for you to get the liver transplant or kidney transplant, that's pretty rare, you know, to be successful, to even get a liver from a donor and then success on the transplant itself. So it's not that easy as putting new joints. So I always tell people that's what we have to really focus on, is your longevity. You know, we're doing this, and the way my philosophy, my work works is that we're going to stay on a journey. You don't come in to work out for 3 months, learn something and leave. I have cases that happen, but most people after 3 months, they say, okay, I had such a great results and I feel so good about myself. I don't want to lose the momentum, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that if you're not here waiting for me at my appointment, I'm not going to show up. There's going to be too many excuses. The fact that they pay a very reasonable amount of money per session to be there, they value the money that they're paying, they value me, that
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be there helping them to get through what they have to get through, right? I mean, you got to get your workout done no matter
Yeah.
what. That's how I did it. But I did it just from my own drive. I
Mm-hmm.
had that drive, and I don't know where it came from, but I always had that drive. So today, that drive is being applied to helping people that wanted to be helped. I wouldn't change my career for any other career. I have a frustration that I'm gonna show right here to you guys. When I went back to Brazil after I finished school here, I worked for my dad. I made some money. I invested in two gyms with some relatives of my cousins, and those two gyms became four. And that's what actually really gave me the subsidy to come here and start a career here and meet, Joe Weider and get my sponsorship here and everything. But in order to make that transition, to be able to support my family, that unfortunately my ex-wife didn't want to come to the United States. She was very attached to her family, Italian family. My kids were very young. I couldn't bring them by myself. So I had to leave them in Brazil and support them, and then come here and support myself. The money was never the obstacle, because somehow I was always involved in making money, and from the money that I made working for my dad and creating the gyms that they were already doing well. By the way, in Brazil, private gyms like we have, like the Yard,
Mm-hmm.
and not even corporate, gyms. Corporate gyms came much later, but small home gyms, neighborhood gyms, there wasn't any in Brazil when I first opened my gym. So it was also a very innovative way of looking into start to develop fitness in Brazil. And today, if you go, have you ever been to Brazil?
I've been to Sao Paulo and I've been to Rio de Janeiro. Yeah.
Okay.
Rio
Have
is
you
absolutely
have you
gorgeous.
noticed in Rio how it's like an epidemic of fitness?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody running on that
Mm-hmm.
beach strand there.
Yep.
And then if you go into the one or two streets inland, almost every other corner you see a studio,
Mm-hmm.
and their passion, especially the girls, in developing those legs. Have you noticed how
Mm-hmm.
fit they are? The
Yeah.
legs, the butt. It's unbelievable.
Don't tell my wife I was looking though. Don't.
And it's an obsession. It's an obsession there, And let me brag here a little bit, because I feel proud of that. 2 years ago on Easter, I was inducted in the Hall of Fame in Brazil. I became Hall of Fame of uh, fitness and bodybuilding,
Oh.
and it was in Arnold's expo. Arnold has an expo there every year, and he was there, and he was the one that gave me the trophy and the plaque. So it was a recognition of what I created, because you should see that fair that they have is Arnold's.
Yeah, the Arnold Classic. Yeah.
Arnold's expo,
Mm-hmm.
and they do the Arnold's Classic there too.
Mm-hmm.
They have a bodybuilding show, they have a fitness show, they have martial arts, but I'm talking about, I'm not exaggerating, the size of the LA Convention Center,
Mm-hmm.
or bigger. That's
Mm-hmm.
their convention center, and it's attached to 3 hotels. There was people from all over the world in this convention. There was the strongest man competition there. The guys that
Mm-hmm.
lift those big concrete balls, and and they do squats with those barrels full of water. And I mean, they had those guys there. They had bodybuilding show, they had powerlifting show, they had martial arts show, and all the fitness shows. It was unbelievable. I was so, I'm not a small guy, especially in Brazil. In
Mm-hmm.
Brazil, usually men is a little smaller than here.
Mm-hmm.
But I was impressed in how many big guys, but big guys, muscular, were walking around the expo. So definitely the culture has changed. And now we're talking about from 84 when I left Brazil to now. So how many years is that?
Almost 40
Almost
years.
40, yeah.
Almost
Coming
40
up on
years.
40 years. Yeah.
So it's like amazing. And I was there in 4 days in the show. And it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I was seated in the booth of one of their manufacturers of health food store,
Mm-hmm.
of all the health food, powders and
Mm-hmm.
protein powders and all the supplements and all the stuff, huge in Brazil. So they had a booth that was like almost like a block, the size of it. And they had a stage and they had shows going on, and they had their entire display of all their products, and they were giving samples to everybody. So I was right in the middle of this whole thing in a podium, signing autographs and shaking hands and taking pictures with, they had about 200,000 people that went through
Mm-hmm.
that whole expo. I would say 10% of those people I shook hands and I took pictures with. I mean, it was unbelievable, the reception that they had for a person like me that had been so detached. Because after I quit bodybuilding, I really didn't follow bodybuilding. And I
Mm-hmm.
haven't been really close to the bodybuilders or to the community. And even here, that's where I did my whole activity. But in Brazil, I used to go just once a year to visit my family, and they knew I was going to be there. And I would go do an appearance at some gym, and they would do a seminar, and they would sell tickets at the door to go and meet me and be around me for a couple hours talking about bodybuilding and training. And they all want to know tips of how to get big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I go, I wish I had the magic pill. You guys want a prescription? There's no prescription. The prescription is hard work. And it's not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Arnold said, no pain, no gain. I'm saying hard work, discipline and perseverance. And that's it. We can't really find the magic wand here to make people big and strong. It has to be out of your own, willpower. I have people that come to me and says, let's write a book about all your experiences, everything that you have learned, and let's put in a book. And I think there's a lot of curiosity and a market for it. And when I'm with people and I'm training them, I think about what can I be saying, on a book, because everything that I do is based on a person, on that private hour that I'm spending. It's always evolving into something different every time.
Mm-hmm.
That I say, how can I put all this in one formula?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a formula to get here unless you are doing the steps. You're walking the walk, and we are walking the walk. And I feel like every day that I show up in a gym and I put my gym mask on and I become what I become in a gym to teach these people and have the patience to listen and be available for telling them. I mean, I train people at the yard that they are CEOs of huge companies making tons of money, and they are the boss, and they are used to be the boss. And I'm telling them what to do,
Mm-hmm.
but like with conviction. I say, hey, listen, let's stop talking. Let's do this thing here. We got to finish the program. This is what I have, in mind for you today. Oh, but I'm tired. No, we're gonna get over. We're gonna do this. I'm so bossy sometimes, and I say, why am I this way? And they are listening to me. It's because I have something good to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, and it's day in, day out. Otherwise, they wouldn't even come back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why are they keep coming back? Is because they're getting something. They're getting something from my personal experience. They're getting some of their personal experience, they are growing with the process.
Mm-hmm.
They are feeling empowered.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're strong physically, you're strong in your mind too, because in order to change your physical, you have to change your mind. And they are achieving, because I don't do anything that they don't want to do. They have to establish their goals, you know. Okay, we sit down, my first appointment, we do a consultation, and they have to write down their goals, what they want, that they are looking to learn. And my proposition here is that I'm going to teach them how to train themselves by themselves. So they're going to learn everything that they have to learn in terms of weightlifting, getting shape, diet. But after 9 months, after 6 months, if they want to continue with me, it's up to them. But after 6 months, they are able to continue do the whole fitness program without having anyone to be there for them to teach them anything, because they will know everything. And that's what I am offering, in my program. So, but it seems like every time that I start with someone new, there's always one more to my repertoire of clients. They don't go away, they stay. And that's where I now have to create something. When people talk about a book, or I need to figure out how I can make myself available for more people without actually having to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to learn technology. I have to learn what I am very ignorant about. That's why I told you I didn't even know how to do a Zoom call, where now, if you don't do a Zoom call, you can even get educated, you can even go to school. And all the financial people are working through Zoom. Everybody, here we are,
Mm-hmm.
creating something of informative through Zoom. And so I really want to slow down a little bit on my everyday business to see if I can create something, where I create an app or create, program where I can extrapolate. Now, not 8 people a day, but maybe 80 people a day,
Mm-hmm.
or 800 people a day that can be involved in something that I have to offer. But I got to put together in some form of technology to distribute
Mm-hmm.
that way, right?
Yep. Well, I know you had said you used a lot of isometrics at a younger age in your swimming training. Did you carry any of that over into your bodybuilding training?
Well, the time that we made the most progress and achieved the most results in our physique was, we usually do an approach for competition 4 months, so 16 weeks, and then we start posing. So there's a fourth session. It's cardio and weightlifting, and then posing, when we start training for competition. And it's 1 hour in a posing room with slant mirrors so you can see your back, mirrors to the side, mirrors in front and back. And there's a choreographer there, music. You got to put 5 minutes of choreography, which is your final pose down. And then you have your compensatory poses, which is your judge 3x3 in front of the lineup, where the judges are watching everybody doing the same poses.
Mm-hmm.
2 frontal, 2 side shots, and 2 back shots. And then you have the symmetry poses too.
Mm-hmm.
And all those poses are isometric.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're holding a pose, and you have to engage every single muscle that you can feel and smile at the same time, that's one of the hardest things I've ever done. In that period of 4 months, because of the posing every night, I used to leave a puddle of sweat in the posing room. We had to put towels to stand on it, otherwise it becomes so slippery. And we were sore the next day.
Mm-hmm.
The muscles are getting sore, your chest and your biceps, to the point that you couldn't even relate to. You could never get sore that way doing weight training, weightlifting. It's a totally different soreness. It's deep inside of the fiber. And that's isometric, because you hold the pose for a few seconds, and then when you relax, you do a transition, and then you go and you flex again. And you're doing this for 5 minutes on creating a pose routine to music. And then you do it over and over again, because not only you have to know how to do the poses and learn the choreography, it has to become second nature. Because when you first start doing it, the amount of cramps that you have, everything cramps all the way to your toes and fingers. And there's part of dehydration because you're sweating so much, but that's how intense the isometric part of the exercise is. And we try to replicate that in, like, when we finish doing like dips on a bench, like, okay, like you did a whole bunch of triceps and you finish your triceps, you're already completely fatigued. So you do a whole bunch of small pumps and you hold it like for a minute on the track, on the top, flexing your triceps the most, like really to the point that you're going to fall down if you keep going. We use a lot of that. And that was just, that was all instinctual, you know, because we knew when we posed, that's how we felt. And it created a lot of details in the muscle that usually we couldn't get just from exercise. So that's to show you how important isometric is, you know. We did the same thing with the curls. You get a easy curl bar, you know, and you just hold it. What we did, the time was 21. It was called 21. It was 7 here, 7 low, and 7 in the middle. And then you hold it when you finish after 21. It's lightweight, but you hold it to the point that you're going to drop the bar, you know. So we did a lot of that with biceps, triceps, abs. We did a whole bunch of crunches, and then you'll hold the crunch on the last one and try to hold as long as you could, you know, because that even teaches you how to breathe with, you know, contraction, muscle contraction. And when you contract your abdominal muscles, something happens. Everything comes to a halt in your body. Even the breathing, you want to stop breathing because you want to. That's when you have to learn how to relax everything and keep these muscles contracted. And we used to see tremendous results. One thing that everybody does today, but nobody did at the time, but we did it, was plank. And sometimes we got so strong in plank that was to get one of our partners, training partners, to lay down on you. They will lay down on their back, on your back, and you do a plank like that, 1 minute holding. And every single muscle is engaged in your body when you do that. What else did we do? We did like sumo squats and held the sumo squat on a position where the bar was right in between your knee and your ankles. And you hold it there. Perfect form. Actually, that's a move in jiu-jitsu. Now, a lot of people get hurt on your lower back because they arch the lower back instead of keeping the lower back extended. So to keep neutral, so there's no pressure on the lower back. And when you're holding weight, it's very hard to maintain that posture. So we teach that exercise in martial arts. I have 2 kids. I have one is going to be 40 now in April, and my older one is going to be 43 in May. And they are both black belt world champion in jiu-jitsu. My younger one won here at the Cal State Long Beach, the pyramid there. They have the world championship there every year. He won 4 times. And my younger one won 2 times there and one in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi, they have huge tournaments, no gi. And he won in Abu Dhabi 1 time. So they're very well known too in the industry of jiu-jitsu. And they all do weights, but not to be like a bodybuilder super big, but to be strong in terms of endurance, you know, stamina is strength. And that's what you get from doing weights and knowing how to use weights in an isometric way too, like doing this exercise that I'm telling you. There's one very important move in jiu-jitsu. It's called passing the guard. And when you're trying to pass the guard, there's a position that you get to. The guy that's going to pass the guard is the guy that's standing, is on top, and the guy at the bottom is doing the guard game, right? So it has the legs wrapped around you, and you have to open the legs because usually they have locked. Open the legs and make sure that you get, that's when people that don't know, they get an arm bar because they put the arm straight and the guy on the guard gets your arm, put it in the arm bar.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you got to figure out how to put those legs down, change their leverage so you can get the leverage. And all this is done on a guard position, which is a sumo squat that I'm referring to you, holding the bar between your knee and your ankle, that height. That's the same posture that you are trying to break the guard. And a black belt fight goes about 10 minutes nonstop. 10 minutes nonstop wrestling,
That's a lot.
And at 2 black belts, it's like, it's so intense. It's so intense. And if you don't have that stamina for your strength, you're going to lose the fight. Because if the other guy has more than you do, he's going to eventually get you when you get tired.
What was your typical off day, or what was your typical recovery day when you were in the prime bodybuilding?
Yeah, we did 3 days on, 1 day off.
Okay.
3 days on, 1 day off. On the day off, we did foam rollers. We did a lot of stretches. Some people did yoga at the time. Other people did some form of dancing because it helped you on your posing and it helped you on your flexibility because they do a lot of stretches and they do a lot of isometric too in dancing classes. And it makes you familiar with music. It makes you more rhythmic and it softens the hardness of the posing because you don't want to show any kind of stress when you're posing. Yeah. It has to be complete, as natural can be, and it's not. That's the last thing that's going to be is natural. But that all comes with training. So we use a lot of that. Some people like to do some water activities, go in the pool and walk with weights, walk with weight vest, and walk at the bottom of the pool, or try to thread water with some form of weight on your body. That was something that we did a lot in. I used to live in this complex in Marina del Rey called Marin's Village. So they had several pools there. And we always pick a pool that didn't have a lot of people because they always thought that we're weird, weird people doing weird things. So we always very tan. Back then, the spray tan wasn't very common, or we didn't have a spray tan. So you had to really tan naturally. So we go to the sun every day on our break, and midday break, and lay by the pool and then do a lot of water activities. And then during the break, after 1 hour of sun, you don't want to be there anymore because you're going to get burned. So what we did was just, we go stretch. So we bring our mats, put underneath the umbrellas, and then do some stretches, some foam rolling when the body was, warm from the sun. But that was also very instinctive, the recovery, the way we did, is because we really needed to break down some of the fascia that was tight. We needed to prevent injuries, and we start feeling, a lot of the biceps tendon hurting and a lot of the iliac psoas tight. And how do you open all those things up? How do you, keep yourself pliable so you can go and put another 3 days of tremendous amount of stress on your body from weightlifting? I always like to stretch because I learned that from swimming, and I was almost very flexible, so I never really lost the flexibility. So I would stretch every day after each workout session. I stretch for 15-20 minutes.
Were a lot of your peers or a lot of the other competitors doing that, or were they not?
No. It wasn't. Today, if you go to Gold's Gym Venice, there's one room that's only for recovery. And there's a huge mat, like a dojo mat, jiu-jitsu or judo mat. And that's all you see, tons of people on the mat stretching with rubber bands and ropes and the foam rollers. And now they even have tables with the Theragun on top of the tables, So they even do that, But we didn't have at the time any of that. And there was no vibration therapy. There was no power plate. There was no stick mobility. There was nothing. We used stick like broomstick,
Hmm. Yeah.
just to do some, side stretches and, similar to the stretches that you do, but without any technology on flexibility, of the stretch
Hmm.
of the stick. So it was this, and it was too small. We improvised and we did everything that we could do from the ability that we had to learn the body and as we go, or
Hmm.
as was needed. Oh, there was one point that I was telling you when I went back to Brazil and I went back to school in Brazil. When I opened my gym, I wanted to learn about the body. And I had some knowledge from PT school,
Hmm.
PE school, physical
Hmm.
education, but I really want to learn how to treat the body,
Hmm.
not use the biomechanics and physiology and anatomy for exercise, but I want to know for rehabilitation. My dream was to go to medical school.
Hmm.
And I got into medical school in Brazil. I did medical school for 2 years, but I never finished because I had a problem. My parents got divorced and I had to go help my mom, which is, I always say, if one day I win the lottery and I don't have to work anymore, I'm going to go back to medical school and finish medical school because that's my dream. I don't care how old I am.
Hmm.
But what I did is with the units that I had in medical school, I finished PT school in Brazil. And PT school in Brazil is very wide spectrum of physiology knowledge. So we even learn chiropractor movements because they don't have chiropractors in Brazil.
Okay.
Especially at the time, there was no chiropractic school. I know that there's some movements these days to bring chiropractor to Brazil, but either you're MD or you're physical therapy or you're physical education, and those are the modalities that you're going to get help from the medical point of view. I learned in PT school in Brazil where we were hands-on. Part of theory, we didn't spend too much time. We had assignments. You read your books that you need to read to learn some of the science, but this is where you're going to have to learn. And we went to one of the biggest PT practice in São Paulo and in Brazil, which is a soccer team in São Paulo called the São Paulo Football Club. And they have building of about 3 floors, huge building, all one for their team, one for all the other teams that come to utilize them because they don't mix their team with all the other teams or all the other sports. And the third floor is international. They get people from all over the world there. So I got to practice and to do all my internship in this practice in Sao Paulo. So it was tremendous experience. And that's where I learned all the manipulation. I learned ART. I learned neuromuscular reeducation, fascia, myofascia release, all that stuff that they were doing. I only came to learn here somewhere down the line in my bodybuilding career when people are starting to get hurt and you hear, oh, this chiropractor is doing this chiropractor is doing that. And I got to meet the guy that actually developed the whole knowledge of the neuromuscular reeducation. His name
Hmm.
was Dr. Glum. And he was a chiropractor and he was the first one to do that really deep work, and all the athletes. And he used all power lifters and bodybuilders and a lot of martial artists. They used to go to him, and I got to work for him for a year, also internshipping for him. So that's where all my experience comes from. It's just basically from applying, everything that it was being utilized
Hmm.
to fix people quickly, because especially on a professional level, you don't have a lot of time to nurse a hamstring pull, or tight psoas, or your calves and your soleus, they're all bound up and You got to strip that, open up and clear the injury and back to the field, back working. So that was a really good experience to incorporate to my practice.
So when you were stretching, were you incorporating a lot of contractions then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's two forms of stretching that we apply. One is relaxed stretching, where you don't put any stress on your muscle. You try to relax, like yoga, breathing and letting it go. Trying to open up the muscle as much as possible. And the active stretching, where you basically stretch like you're doing, like with the stick, stretching, utilizing movement and contracting and distracting the muscle so you can get the full length of the muscle, not just neurological stretching where you get a little bit of the amplitude of the muscle and then the muscle contracts again. When you have a stretch where you do a functional stretch, it's in my opinion is much better than a passive stretch.
Yeah, I think it definitely yields better results.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting to see how many people still do passive stretching. And then when you introduce them to active stretching, their eyes just go bing, because they're like, wow, what is that?
Yeah, definitely. You not only feel the benefit at the time, but you feel the benefit after days and days and days, because you actually retain that stretch, and the passive stretch you kind of lose immediately. The next day you're tight again.
If there was something that you could maybe go back, if you had another chance to do it again, even from a training methodology, is there something else? Is there something different you would do? Or is there any changes you would have made to your programming?
For sure, the overtraining part.
Okay.
That's something, like I said, today I take care of my clients the way I would have taken care of myself if I knew what I know today, what not to do. Even though we had some knowledge of recovery, but we never did properly. We always like, I'm resting today, but maybe I should do a little more intense cardio, and let's do some calves because I didn't do a good calf, workout yesterday. So the 24 hours not training, when you're training that intense, it was murder for us to just kind of sit still and just take care of the body. When we're injured was different, because then you really pause to recover from the injury and you look for people to help you. This guy, Dr. Gary Glum, he did a lot of work in a lot of bodybuilders, and he really had tremendous success in recovery. And we learned a lot from him in recovery, but we never did a proper recovery. And that's what I would emphasize more if I had to go back and do it again. It would be on my recovery, because I guarantee you, if I had the proper recovery, I wouldn't be where I am in terms of my joints, my knees, my hips, and my shoulders. A lot of bodybuilders, they suffer from knees and shoulders, especially, and back. See Randy Coleman.
Yeah.
Ronnie Coleman.
Ronnie Coleman.
Right?
Yep.
Ronnie Coleman. I mean, look how, did you see that documentary on, did you have a chance to see that documentary on his?
No, yeah.
It's unbelievable, right? Where, I mean, the guy got to a point that he can't even walk, that's really scary. And that's one thing that I didn't have the knowledge. I never thought, I always thought I was indestructible, that I would never, my injuries, they were all superficial, and all I had to do is little muscle stim and, I'm back to business, Today, that's one thing. And if you really look at all levels of sport, and especially the professional level, how much they emphasize on recovery, right? I mean, they spend a day or two on recovery. It's because it's just as important as the strength training or the conditioning training, to get strong and to recover, because you're going to get much more benefit from your functional training when you are well recovered than if you're always tired. And so you're always in overtraining. I guess our era was the era to learn the hard way. And now, you know, with all the new technology and all the studies that shows to us the importance, and now people are practicing, you know, there's people that they devote the entire career just in recovery, you know, just teaching people how to recover properly.
Well, thank you for coming on, sir. We really appreciate it, man. And
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for giving us your insight and your experiences that you had. We really enjoyed that. So I think listeners will find a lot of valuable information in that. So thank you as always, my friend. And
thank you very much for having me and spending some time with me and listening to my stories. Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. And for anybody who's interested, Luis can be found at Yard Strength in Manhattan Beach, down in Southern California. So if you're in the area, stop on in and say hello. Especially once we get over this COVID.
Yeah, we get over it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
right now, unfortunately, doors are shut. You know.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only way we can operate.
Yeah. So, all right, my friend. Well, we hope to see you soon, and you take care, and we'll talk soon. All right, buddy.
All right.
And to all the listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next episode, be good to each other.